As one popular saying goes, it is cheaper to live a whole life of luxury than to be buried at Recoleta. Recoleta, also known as the beautiful city of dead. It is not just one cemetery, it's among the top 3 in the world. A place full of history, architecture, and symbols that are worth discovering. For nearly 200 years, the elite of Buenos Aires have been commemorating their dead with extravagant sculptures. Today we will be visiting Recoleta Cemetery and I'll be sharing some interesting stories associated with this cemetery. As we enter the cemetery, we can see that the city streets are lined with above-ground mausoleums, shoulder to shoulder, just like any streets of traditional European city.
Heartbreaking moment for her family that her mother had a special permission to spend the night inside the vault. So it's possible that perhaps Pablo did.
Many of the mausoleums look just like little houses with doors and windows. Inside there can be up to 3 levels underground to hold cascades that fit into slots on each floor. The first mausoleum we are visiting today is that of General Thomas Gudo, a general in the Argentine War of Independence. Gudo joined the revolution of May 1810, helping to negotiate independence from Spain. His son, poet and politician Carlos Gudo, built his father's stony vault in tribute with his own hands.
When his body was removed, he didn't make it right here. And even though he has his headstone in the British cemetery, it's completely empty. And no one knows where Frank.
The next mausoleum is of Rufina Cambaceres, young Argentine woman who had perhaps gone into coma in 1902 and was pronounced dead at age of 19. A few days after her burial, workers heard screams from her tomb, and when it was opened, there were scratches on her face and on the coffin from her attempts to escape. Her mother built a grand tomb with sculpted orchids and a soulful statue of the young woman. Though the story of her tragic death was never verified, it has captured the hearts of thousands of visitors to this cemetery. So Recoleta has remains of some of Argentina's most iconic and celebrated figures. More than 20 presidents, 25 city mayors, 40 governors, Nobel Prize winners, military officials, writers, politicians, engineers, and even a caretaker are buried at this cemetery. As you can see here, some mausoleums are in very bad shape, and when it doesn't have a lock on the door, that means that the corpse is taken out and the space is available for sale. So an interesting fact, the interiors of large and wealthy family mausoleums have large sitting rooms with offering tables, stained glass windows, flower vases, statues, just like a mini chapel. The next mausoleum is of Familia Roverano. Even though he is missing an arm, this statue of an Italian immigrant is unique to Recoleta Cemetery. He represents one of the newly arrived in Argentina, stepping off a boat onto the dry land. So we have always heard of kidnapping for ransom, but have you ever heard of kidnapping for ransom of dead bodies? Well, this has happened here in Recoleta Cemetery. Aramburu was a politician and he was kidnapped and murdered by Peronistas, which was the supporters of another political party. 2 years later, after his death, his remains were stolen from his grave in this cemetery with the intent to exchange them for those of Evita Peron, whose story we will be covering later in this video. The next mausoleum is of Luis Angel Firpo, an Argentine boxer nicknamed the Wild Bull of the Pampas. Luis Angel Firpo was widely popular across Latin America in 1920s. On his passing in 1960, he was buried in a vault behind a life-size statue of him in his boxing uniform. In 2003, he was named as one of the 100 greatest punchers of all time. The next mausoleum is of Salvador Del Carril and his wife. In spite of Del Carril's decades of participation in Argentine politics, he is also well known for having major marital problems. Tiburcia apparently liked to spend all of her husband's fortune to a point where he published a letter in major newspapers claiming that he would no longer be responsible for his wife's debts. And rumor has it that before she passed away in 1898, 15 years after her husband, she requested that her bust look away from her husband for eternity. No one goes to Recoleta Cemetery without a visit to Evita's grave. By Recoleta standards, however, it is a very simple grave or the mausoleum. 3 years after the former First Lady Eva Peron died of cancer in 1952, her body was removed by the Argentine military in the wake of a coup that deposed her husband, President Juan Peron. The body then went on a transatlantic odyssey for nearly 20 years before finally being returned to the Duarte family mausoleum in this cemetery. She now lies in a crypt 5 meters underground, heavily fortified to ensure that no one can disturb the remains of Argentina's most beloved and controversial First Lady. The next mausoleum is of Liliana Crociati. 26-year-old Liliana Crociati di Sazasek was in Innsbruck, Austria in Feb 1970 when she was killed by an avalanche. Her tomb was designed by her mother in the neo-Gothic style, in decided contrast to other tombs in the cemetery. A life-size green bronze statue of Liliana in her wedding dress sits adjacent to her tomb. Following the death of Liliana's beloved dog Sabu, a bronze statue of the dog was added, with Liliana's hand resting on the dog's head. After exploring the beautiful Recoleta Cemetery, now it's time to have some amazing lunch at Pani restaurant. We are now going to explore LaBoca, which is a vibrant, colorful neighborhood located in the southeast part of Buenos Aires. Known for its rich history and cultural significance, it's particularly famous for its brightly painted buildings, tango performances, and the football club called Boca Juniors. The name Boca literally means mouth, and being city's main port, that is exactly what this neighborhood is about. So in mid-19th century, Buenos Aires was growing rapidly because of the international trade, and LaBoca became very important at its time. Immigrants coming from Spain and Italy gathered together in LaBoca. However, most of them were poor when arriving in Buenos Aires. The immigrants started to work in the LaBoca harbor, located at Riachuelo River. The harbor was booming and the warehouses were processing Argentinian beef for shipping around the world. The workers collected paint leftovers, metal sidings, and more, not aware at that time, but it gave a unique look and feel to LaBoca and the famous little path El Caminito in Buenos Aires. That brings an end to our beautiful day exploring the amazing neighborhoods of Buenos Aires. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in my next video.